One of the toughest things to do is navigating through a breakup and figuring out how we're supposed to heal. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly where I'm at now that I'm approaching the 7th month mark and what you can expect if you've been engaging in a similar kind of process. I'm also going to touch on some key things that really helped me through those initial 6 months, and also some things that maybe I wish I knew earlier on. So wherever you're at, if you're on a healing journey out there, there's definitely something you can learn from this video. Yo, it's your friendly neighborhood knucklehead, and this is my 10th vlog talking about my healing journey, and specifically healing from heartbreak. Now, before I talk about where I am right now, 6 months in, I want to jump right into where I was at the start. And in the beginning, it was just about getting through the day, especially those first couple months, having bad dreams, waking up nauseous, figuring out how to cope with all of these things that have just led to me being totally dysregulated. I was distracting myself with video games. I was going on walks and talking on the phone with family and friends. I did a lot of writing and listening to music. And most importantly, I got myself a therapist right away. But I developed these routines to really contain my emotional dysregulation. And in that vein, I want to bring up this graphic that I think is really helpful. And I know I've brought up similar graphics in the past vlogs where I talked about the scatter plot of the healing journey and how it's not linear. But this visual right here to me actually looks like something we can use to talk about the healing journey, and it's actually called the healing spiral. And I'm gonna put a link in the description exactly where I got this image from, because there's a bunch more information on that website that will definitely help you if you want to read more about it. But when it's all about perspective here, right? So that graphic on the left, this is how most of us can look at healing on the very surface. We are just in cycles of grief, and that future that we were holding on to, that person we were attached to, that outcome we were really planning for, not happening, is going to totally shock us down to our core and cause us to really figure out how to put our lives back together. And if we're just looking at it from the bird's eye view here, it looks like we are just going in circles, right? Now transition to this graphic on the right side, we can actually see that these circles are changing, and this cycle of grief is actually getting smaller and smaller, which means there are less and less like triggers happening and less things that are bringing us like really anchored in those low vibe emotions like guilt and grief and anger and shame and all that stuff. And that's really where I was in the beginning, is just all of those low vibe emotions and the grief reoccurring from memories and dreams and triggering environments. You know, it was really tough, but I held on to my intention. And I talked about this before, but I set my intention to heal in the most positive way. So if you are out there and you are starting a healing journey, we have to first start with an intention and follow through with it. So as those first few months went on, the emotional regulation started to get better and better, and working with the therapist got better and better. But then I actually thought I needed to incorporate some real healing tools, and I Googled it. That's where I started, just Googling. And meditation came up as being something that has helped a lot of people. So I decided to trust in that process. And if you are also looking for what do I do, how do I heal, there is something that you are going to have to trust in. And for me, it was about getting myself through those first couple months, signing on with that therapy and using those practices, and also really gearing myself towards things that are going to heal me and bring me more self-aware of where my pain is actually coming from. So the meditation was masterful in like all the way up to like 4 or 5 months in. And it really got me to a place where I was inspired. I found my life purpose again. I started having the energy to engage in being an artist and a creative person. And I was starting a YouTube channel here, and all this stuff was happening, and it was all great. But I was still engaged in these cycles of grief that were coming and going, and I was just kind of managing them along the way. So there's going to be a lot of things that are just going to reoccur, but in different ways. So approaching the 4 or 5 month mark, I realized I was starting to have some real blocks come up. Meditation was helping me heal, but it was also exposing things that it wasn't necessarily going to be a remedy for, and that I was actually going to need to figure out something that was a little more hardcore in order to break through these energetic and emotional blocks. And I was trying different meditations, more intense meditations, meditating for 2 hours, like to great lengths, and affirmations and all of these things. But I realized my major block was in forgiveness. And now I was able to identify that I was having a lot of trouble forgiving myself, forgiving my partner for what had ended up happening, even though it is a totally neutral thing and normal thing for two people to break up when they're in a relationship. There can come a fork in the road in any relationship. So it should be kind of seen as a neutral thing. But when you start throwing in trauma bonds and abandonment wounds and all of these repressed stressors from our past and triggers that they are attributed to, everything gets so much more complicated, and letting go of that person and that attachment feels impossible. I really needed to find something, and I was experimenting already, but the thing that helped me break through this block was signing up for a virtual somatic release breathwork ceremony. Now, I'm not going to go into total detail about what that is. I mean, you can look it up if you're curious about it. But if you are feeling forgiveness blocks, that might be something you may want to look into, because that worked wonders for me. It was about a 2-hour intense breathing practice that puts the unconscious mind into the conscious mind, and the person leading the ceremony would start to ask you questions to put your brain into pinpointing where the pain lies and where those energetic and emotional blocks are. I realized from that ceremony that I had forgiveness blocks because of my relationship with my mom, and it was even deeper than where I thought I needed to go. And I started apologizing to my mom in my head and really figuring out a way to understand that I can't control those people. I can't control the way my mom was. I can't control the way my partner was. I just have to accept them for who they are, and I have to forgive them for not being the person I want them to be or expect them to be. Like, that's on me. So in essence, the breathwork ceremony even ended up with me asking energetic and karmic forgiveness of them for reacting the way that I was and being triggered in the way that I was. I was essentially taking responsibility for these blocks that I had. And then after that apologizing and love energy, I got into a state of gratitude where I was just stoked about being able to break through these things and being able to have that sort of karmic energy healing sequence. And I was just, again, so appreciative that I was alive, so appreciative that I had the time that I had with those other people. And again, everything is perfect. And that ceremony really brought that line to me, was that I needed to go through these things to get where I am now, and I appreciate those lessons that I've learned from other people. So from that breakthrough, another thing that I've been working on was working through this book here on letting go, the pathway to surrender. This has been instrumental with understanding how to deal with these different emotional states and how to deal with our levels of consciousness and bringing them higher and higher based on surrendering our control, surrendering our attachments and desires and things of that nature, and just letting go of the things that we are suffering from. And ultimately that book and surrendering would bring me to this path of acceptance, and it all was bringing my energy back to me. It was not about grief. It was not about grieving the relationship. It was all coming back to me and setting my boundaries and keeping my state of energetic positivity, keeping that within to heal these things and these painful memories that were cycling on and on. It was as if the pain and the negative stuff was now being met with acceptance and gratitude. And this book and that ceremony really opened the door for me to be able to do that. And that's the kind of state that I'm in right now. I feel energized with what I'm doing. I feel energized to wake up every day and engage in the things that I'm engaged in. I'm not scared to go to sleep. I'm not scared to have bad dreams to put me back into a grief cycle. I can simply use the tools that I've learned to be able to process the pain, accept the memories, observe the thoughts, and let go of their weight. So if you learned something from this video, let me know in the comment below, or if you feel like there's some other things that maybe I missed out on. What are some healing techniques that you use, especially 6 months after a breakup or something like that? If you made it to this part of the video, you might as well like and subscribe to see more stuff like this, and also other tips that I've been giving out towards artists and creative people. And you can find that playlist right up here, which is artistic advice and awareness. So I'll see you in those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and stay creative.